Messiah Modi, Tavleen Singh's new book ends with a question mark. And today we are going to discuss everything that has gone on in the past few months that had to do with her son Aatish Taseer, about which she also talks about in the book, and of course, the man himself. Tavleen, my first question is, who have you written this book for? And about, because when I was reading the book, it seemed that it is a lot about you than the man you seem to be writing about.
It's not about me, but I always write a reporter's book. So obviously I can only see what has happened in the past year through my eyes, not through yours or anybody else's. I don't write books that are theoretical and, this is political theory and he's a fascist and so on. So I always write a reporter's book. So this is just the one about Modi.
Who is the target audience here?
There's no target audience. The people who are interested in Indian current affairs and political history, they will read it. It's certainly not going to be read in Bollywood, I don't think. Journalism is called the first draft of history.
Right.
This is my first draft of this time. And when historians start to write their history books, hopefully it'll help them.
Right. And how honest have you been? Because, you have been under a lot of attack from various quarters that your relationship with Modi and the BJP has seen ups and downs depending on your personal equation.
No. I've written in the prologue itself that messiahs are what people look for in dark times. I supported Modi because I liked what he was saying. I believed it was a very dark time in which he came along. And, people saw him as a messiah. It wasn't just me.
Right.
Everyone said, this guy's going to fix it, because he talked about parivartan.
But has he been the messiah that everyone thought that he was?
That's why there's the question mark in the title. That, I think that in his first few months, which I describe in the book, when we followed him to Washington and New York, and the reception that he got, because you see, unlike what they're saying now about the whole world being against India, the world is very keen for India to do well. And what they hope for is that India will succeed in doing as well with democracy. Because, democracy and free markets are considered the recipe for success. So, which is why, he was given the reception he was. And it's very sad that he blew it in a way with the lynchings and demonetization, which again I go through.
You talked about how the democracies of the world are actually looking at India and with a hope and purpose, but it's rather ironic that some of the deepest friendships that Modi has been able to forge are with dictatorial regimes and very problematic monarchies.
I don't think that's fair, because our relations with America have remained good with a change of president. Our relations with Europe and with now that the UK is out of Europe, with the UK are good. He has tried to balance these relationships with also keeping a relationship with Xi Jinping and with Putin, Putin and Xi are the two dictators in his thing. But, so I don't agree that he's, been particularly soft on dictatorships, and he's been very tough with countries that export Islamic jihad.
Right, Islamic jihad somehow in this particular regime has been a stick to beat the minorities with.
That is very unfortunate. I wish that he had been as tough with those groups who promote jihadism as he is with those poor women sitting in Shaheen Bagh. Because if you go there, I don't know if you've been, but I've been there, and I didn't meet one jihadist there, and I think it's really quite wonderful that students and women are in the streets wrapped in the Indian flag and, with the constitution in their hands, and, that's great, and he's getting tough with them and saying they're Pakistanis. And, he's got people like Yogi Adityanath, who should be ashamed of himself, frankly, for saying the kind of things he's been saying. about these protests.
But Tavleen, people have been saying that these people, Yogi Adityanath, or for that matter, even Narendra Modi, was actually empowered by people like you, for example, who did not check him when first red flags were up there, and
Not
everybody
true.
chose to ignore that.
Not true. When the first red flag to me was the killing in the first lynching, Akhlaq, in Bishara, in this village here. And I went on television at least 10 times to say this is really wrong and must stop. I then attacked him on every time that they had one of these incidents, I attacked him. When he failed to do the economic change, I was critiquing him then. It's just that people choose to be blinded by their own narrow vision. But I must add that most of these attacks are on social media from the most disgusting kind of Hindutva fanatics that I have ever come across in this country. I never even knew people so filled with petty hatred and grievance existed. Now I do.
Do you think something has changed in the past 6 years?
In India?
In India? And how people and how communities are interacting with each other?
A lot has changed for the worse. But I have to say that let's give Modi credit where credit is due, and I've given him credit for Swachh Bharat. I think where it came to that kind of social revolution, he has been very effective. Unfortunately, he seems to be of the same socialist mindset as most Indians are, and he hasn't had the courage to dump that road and take a new one.
But that's exactly what he had promised, Parivartan.
Exactly.
And then he has taken
Yeah.
a U-turn, it
Yeah.
seems. Right, so the charge against the BJP is that it is actually Congress plus communalism.
Congress plus cow, as somebody famously said.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but they've actually proved that, And
Do you feel personally betrayed by how they have emerged?
No, listen to me, Nishtha. I have no love for either Mr. Modi or the BJP. I would like to see in my life, I'm going to be 70 this year, I would have liked to see in my lifetime, this country achieve a minimum level of progress. I hate to see poor Indians. If I'm on anyone's side, it's on India's side. And, that's where I am. I'm not with, I don't feel any personal betrayal from anyone.
Right. Now, I also want to steer this discussion towards another man that you have mentioned and dedicated a whole chapter to him, the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah. Now, what is your assessment of the man?
I feel that he is very limited and that he's a kind of, copycat Modi, as I've said in the thing. He copies even some of his speeches. And the most recent example was Modi said, I think, in Ramlila Maidan, "Maine aapse kuch mangna hai, doge." And the next day, Amit Shah was making a speech, "Main aapse kuch mang raha hu, aap doge ki nahi." Now, I think that he's become like a kind of parody of Modi, which is not good for either him or Modi. And he's kind of ruthlessly ambitious. He seems to have his eye on the top job, but I think knows that he can only do it with Modi. And, I don't know what he wants, but I'm not impressed by him at all.
Why is Modi awestruck, it seems, by the Home Minister, by his second in command?
Well, Modi has very few friends and not many colleagues who've been on his journey with him. And Amit Shah happens to be, I think, the only one. So maybe it's that. I don't know. It makes no sense to me.
Now, coming back to the obvious question, about your son and what he faced right after the article that he wrote in an international magazine, do you think that something like that was warranted?
No, of course not. Aatish did not meet his father till he was 22 years old.
He's written about that.
Yeah,
the first
he's
meeting.
grown up in this country. This is his country, but he had a British passport because in the beginning, when Salman and I both thought that, you know, we would, that if he was born in England before they changed the law, that, you know, it would be easier for him to go between the two countries. So he had a British passport, grew up here and had a long-term visa till he was 18. When he turned 18, I went to the FR or whatever that is that in Lok Nayak Bhavan. And they said, ji, aapko ye visa kyun maang rahe hain? Inko PIO de do, dilwa do. I said, dilwa do. And then when in 2016, he had to renew it, it became an OCI. They asked him whether, you know, if his father was Pakistani. They already knew his father. His father was quite a famous Pakistani, you know. Salman had a British passport because they're allowed that, and his mother was English. And Aatish wrote British. And on that ground alone, they've taken away the OCI. If that is vindictiveness, you know, I don't know what is. Because in the law, exceptions can be made, right? Adnan Sami is one of the exceptions that they've made. I'm sure if Tariq Fatah wanted an Indian passport, they'd give it to him in a flash. It was obviously a vindictive gesture done by very small-minded people.
But do you also feel that, you know, Aatish Taseer being Aatish Taseer and this, you know, made headlines everywhere, but there are people, you know, who are not of that stature, and they get victimized on an everyday basis and nobody even comes to know about that?
I don't know about them. I think that actually Aatish got victimized because he wasn't just any old journalist. Aatish, because of his peculiar personal history, because of the India-Pakistan thing, you know, was a target. And actually, if you read the article, the trouble with them is that they don't read. So they might actually just read the headline of this book, which all the trolls have already just read the headline and said, oh, look, why did you put the question mark? Is because of your son. They think that I wrote a book in 2 weeks, or it's been 6 weeks since they took away the OCI. They think I could write 100,000 words in 6 weeks. I mean, they must think that I'm a computer.
You should take it as a compliment, perhaps.
Well, I don't know if it's a compliment.
Have you had fights, you know, you and Aatish?
Aatish sort of started to see through Modi much earlier and took a more, you know, an outsider's view. I am a more hopeful, optimistic person, and I kept hoping. That's why the chapter is called Hope Against Hope. Until now. Now, the Citizen Bill is where I'm really getting worried, because now I see a kind of a systematic attempt to tear apart the syncretic culture of India, and that I think is awful. The Muslims have contributed as many poets and writers and scientists and soldiers as have the Hindus. The Sikhs have done their bit. I mean, you know, more soldiers than scientists and writers. I also think that if they continue to do it, it's irreparable damage and unforgivable. Unforgivable.
Does Aatish tell you, see, Mama, I told you so?
No, he wouldn't dare. And if he did, he would feel my rage.
Right. Thank you so much, Tavleen. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And all the viewers of the Quint, subscribe to us. Also, buy the book.
Thank you. Please buy the book.
Right. Thank you so much.